Well, hey, y'all, welcome to Certainty for Uncertain Times. My name is Lauren, and the entire goal behind this channel is to help you navigate through the chaos, the clown world, and the dumpster fire through the lens of the Bible, but also while connecting the most crucial dots to prophecy. So, if you are somebody who is wanting to connect all these dots that are going on and put together those prophetic puzzle pieces, then I'm going to ask that you would subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, maybe share this video if it resonates, and just be a part of this community, because this is a place that you're going to want to be in as we talk about all of the crazy things that are going on in our world. And yes, there is so much going on. So before we dive in today, I do have a couple of announcements and reminders. Let me pull up my notes here so I don't miss anything. First of all, check the description box for all the goods, resources for today's video, links to the C4UT merchandise, and the link for my newsletter is there. And I would highly suggest that you join my newsletter to stay kind of in the know on what's going on. And if you're feeling led to support this channel, you can do that, whether it's one time or you want to do it monthly. There's links down below in the description box where you can. And of course, Superchats now are here on YouTube. I just want to thank everybody who has been doing so. You guys don't realize what impact you have made on Lance and I personally, and just the channel and the growth and all of that, you guys have helped with. So thank you so very much. I honestly don't have an expansive enough vocabulary to put into words what a blessing you guys have been, but thank you so very much. And if your ears perked up when I said C4UT merch, you heard that right. The Certainty for Uncertain Times merch is officially live, and I'm beyond stoked about this. Lance and I have a goal to release at least like a design a month. It's just something that's really fun. He can take my clustered ideas and come up with something super cool. He actually got one today that we were looking at, and we might try to put it on live on the store later today, but it's really cool. And so anyway, I'm very excited about that. But those, anytime we put out something new, it's going to go out to the Certainty Remnant Underground community first. Those folks are there, and I want to make sure you guys get to see stuff first. So if we do put that one out, stay tuned, you'll see it. And if you are in the underground, you already know this, but you guys get discounts on any and all merch that we have. So be sure to check your email. This month's coupon code went out a couple days ago when we got the store live, and I'm stoked about it because we got shirts, mugs, all the cool things. This has been really a fun project. It has been a laboring project, but it has been fun. Now, I do have to talk about this shirt that I am wearing because obviously, can you guys see it? It says Satan sucks. So this is one of my designs, but this is one of those samples that took 2 months, no joke, to come in, and it is awful. It is literally awful. I was reading about, sackcloth and stuff in the Bible and how that's goat hair. And I'm like, this is exactly what this feels like. It's terrible, which is why I have a shirt on underneath of it. But at any rate, this is one of the designs on the store in some actual comfortable gear. This is from the company that I was going to use and ended up taking 2 months to get samples here. It's crazy. But anyway, I had to wear it today because it is my design, even if it is going to take, 16 gallons of fabric softener to make it worth wearing. And honestly, it shrank just putting it in the washer the first time. So it's probably going to be small enough for Nora to wear in the next couple of washes. But this is a throwback to my youth. My first Christian t-shirt that I ever bought was at a Christ in Youth conference, and it said Satan sucks on it. And I went to a pretty legalistic church growing up, so they hated the shirt. Like everyone there, not everyone, but a lot of people hated the shirt. And it was one of those things that I was like, I have to recreate this because I wore that shirt out. I wore it until there were holes all over it. It was one of my favorite shirts ever. So it is totally a throwback to my actual youth, and that's why we wanted to recreate this one. So it's definitely one that I absolutely love. And a big shout out to Lance because he has helped me put together all of these designs, and I'm super excited about that. So you guys can go down into the store. The store is linked down inside of the description box, and it's just cool. So I'm really excited about it, if you can't tell. And then the one other thing I wanted to tell you guys before we get moving is that for Voices of Certainty this month, Pastor Gary McKibben is coming back on. I think all of y'all probably know he's in Oklahoma right now. The Prophecy Watchers Conference is going on, and everybody has descended onto Oklahoma, and I'm so bummed I could not be there. But he will be back on the channel on the 24th of October, same time, 1 o'clock. We are going to be talking about the Celtic history behind Samhain. and Halloween. So you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be intense, no doubt. But mark your calendars now for that. He will be the guest this month for Voices of Certainty. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you guys is if y'all would be praying for Lance and I. Most of you guys know that the Lord has been stirring our hearts for a while now, and eventually certainty for uncertain times will be something that is full-time, a full-time calling for me. And that's really when God chooses to open that door. We're just trying to stay in step with him. No rushing, no forcing, none of that. I'm just moving when there's peace and we know to do something. And so one of the things that we have been praying a lot about is me stepping away from Texas Roadhouse completely. But right now we do not sense that that's the move. We just don't have peace about it. But here's what we do have peace about and what I'm going to be asking you guys to be praying for. We are stepping out in faith starting this month, and we're starting to scale back some of the shifts that I have working there. And for starters, we're starting with Sundays, y'all. Because Sundays we need to be giving back to the Lord. Like, it is a good thing to have a Sabbath day. And until now, neither one of us ever have a true day off. Like, there's 7 days a week of working. It's not good, right? It's just not good. God gave us a Sabbath for a reason. And that is because we as human beings need to rest, recover, spend time with the Lord, and spend time with our families. So we are actually going to be stepping out from here. And that is going to be the first day that I'm starting with. Now, it's a small, but it is a significant step. It means I'm saying no to income. It means that we're trusting God that he's going to fill in the gaps. And it means learning to rest when our instinct is to hustle. And let me tell you, that is a hard concept, especially in this day and age. So after this, we'll continue to take steps as the Lord leads on transitioning for me into, doing this more full time. But we're just, like I said, following the Lord's leading and making sure that we don't get ahead of him. We're just trying to follow. So if y'all would keep us in prayer as we walk this out, asking God to provide for us, to strengthen our faith through it and to teach us how to rest alone and rest in his timing. All of those things matter. So with that, we're also going to have a Q&A today. So throw your questions in the chat. I think Keegan is the main moderator that is here today. So she's going to be tracking these for the end of the show. She'll have prompts for you guys on how to submit questions. And a huge thank you to the people that are spending their time moderating this channel. You guys are a massive blessing to me. I don't think I could keep up with all of this without y'all. Like, I just couldn't. It's a lot. So I appreciate every single one of you. And the other thing is, I am looking for more moderators and more folks who would love to moderate during live streams like this. So A, if you already moderate for another channel and this is something that you'd like to do, shoot me an email. And B, if you're somebody who thinks you would enjoy this, shoot me an email. I would love to ask you some questions and see if it would be a fit to come hang out with us and kind of help corral the bunch, so to speak, down in the description box, the comment section. So let me know. So with that, I think we can go ahead and jump into today's video, and it's a lot. So here we go. So buckle in, sit down, grab your pen and paper. We got a lot to talk about. When I was praying what to talk about this week, I really felt that the Lord has been impressing something upon my heart, not just for me, but for the body as a whole. And I know a lot of other people are having this too, because, again, I'm seeing other watchmen and watchwomen talk about this very subject that we're going to dive into today. And it's simply because what we're watching unfold in our world right now isn't just random chaos. It's a setup. As you guys know, like, everything is a setup. It's not just political. It's not just social. Every headline, every movement, every new idea that's coming down the pipeline, it really all is converging into one thing, and that is the unification of a world system. And we're seeing that in everything. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about the digital ID and all of that. And this week, we're talking about the one world religion. And we are just seeing this crescendo of things happening. Now, here's the thing. What we're kind of noticing and why this is kind of really heavy on my heart today is that we can see that it's not just happening out there in the governments of the world or even just in the entertainment pieces of the world. It's happening inside the church. And a few of you guys had emailed me and even commented on last week's live stream asking me, Lauren, what exactly were you talking about with the Charlie Kirk Memorial and Ecumenism? And so today, what I really want to do is I want to help tie some of these pieces together for you guys, especially if this is new for you or you're hearing a whole lot of people talk about this and you're going, I am lost in this conversation. I really want to try to kind of hone in on this. And we're going to call it maybe like a 6,000 foot view instead of a 10,000 foot view. So it's going to be a little sharper and a little closer than that 10,000 foot view. But I'm not going to go as deep as some other channels have because I don't need to. The information is out there. But my goal today is to give you a solid starting point if this is new for you. And then also, if it's not new for you, some things that you can go, oh man, I didn't know that. Or, oh man, I need to really take note of that. Those types of things. And I want to show you how a lot of these threads are starting to connect, because what I feel like is happening, and again, so many others are saying this, is over time, this narrative, this push for unity is going to grow louder. It's going to be one of the biggest battles that we have as the church has ever had to face. And that's especially if the Lord's appointed time is still a bit away. And we don't know. We don't know the answer to that. So today I want to peel back the curtain a little bit and look at how all of this, the push for the digital identity, the one world governance, and the unity among the faiths, is really a part of this same agenda. And it's really what Alice Bailey and the Theosophists talked about over 100 years ago. And it's what we're watching play out right now. And that is the setup of the one world religion. And that's what we're going to spend time talking about today. So let's kind of tighten in where we're going here for this 6,000 foot lens. And let's look at what's happening right now. So the first story that caught my attention a couple weeks ago, and you'll see at the end of this why I want to talk about Peter Thiel, and I'm tying all this in because it sent me down a rabbit hole that I thought was like, wow, this is crazy. A couple of weeks ago, back when I had Pastor Gary on the channel, actually, I mentioned in passing during the live with him that Peter Thiel was hosting this big closed door meeting. And for those who don't know who Peter Thiel is, he's a German-born American entrepreneur. He's a venture capitalist. He's a political activist. He's known for co-funding PayPal and Palantir. I always want to say Palantir. And then Palantir is that surveillance software that everybody is using now. All the governments of the world are using. But what most people don't realize is that Palantir literally means seeing stone. And if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, you might remember that word because Palantiri were the stones that allowed the dark powers to spy on everything. It's pretty fitting. So anyway, Peter Thiel is also known for being Facebook's major first outside investor. He's a big Silicon Valley guy, libertarian, conservative, and he's a major financial backer of a lot of people on the right side of politics. And I don't mean right like this is the side you should be on. I mean the right side, like whether you're right or left or Republican or Democrat. He's the guy on the right side of the coin. He's a technocrat, and he is a guy who really put a lot of funding behind JD Vance, which is what many of us were talking about back in 2024 and why there's a lot of red flags there. So anyway, there are tons of videos in the prophecy space about him. And if you want to dig deeper, you can honestly just search his name and you can probably go down about 15,000 rabbit holes to figure out who he is. I don't need to spend a ton of time on him. Most of you guys probably know who he is, or at least have a little bit of insight to who he is. So anyway, he recently hosted this closed door powwow. And the topic was all on the Antichrist. And it was pretty wild because, I got on the website, was, reading his website, and it was just the things on his website were crazy. So the final meeting was held this past Monday because it was a four Monday stretch. So it was like a month of time that they had for this meeting. And I noticed some things that were on his website. And I'm so curious as to what went on behind closed doors, which we're never going to know. But one of the things that I noticed is that tickets were non-refundable. They were non-transferable, which was interesting to me. So again, if you purchased it, you had to be there. You couldn't give your ticket to Sally and let her go in your place. This was a closed meeting. Like the way it was worded, and I have the link to the website. Let me pull this up because this wording was just so fascinating to me. How did he say this? See if I can find it really quick. The lectures are off the record. Off the record. That was interesting. I was like, off the record. Wonder what that means. So anyway, there was that part of it. And oh man, too many websites open. There we go. So what I found interesting was, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see that. But since this meeting was private, we're never going to know what has happened. But what came out of it was a really curious statement from him that started circulating in the news cycles this week. And I just thought it was fascinating. And it was the suggestion, and you guys probably saw the news clips, but it was a suggestion that the efforts to regulate AI, particularly by creating a powerful one world government to manage existential risks, could usher in a modern day Antichrist. And that just caught me funny because he was basically saying that, like, if we regulate this thing, it's going to usher in the Antichrist. And I was like, that's really interesting. He's got a very interesting way of looking at this. So I was reading about on his website. And then where the rabbit hole kind of went further for me was that he has this organization called the Acts 17 Collective. And this is where this starts to tie in with where we're headed for today's big meat and potatoes of this video. And the Acts 17 Collective is where I want to spend some time camping out. So let me close down that website because I'm going to pull this website up for you guys to see. So the Acts 17 Collective is his, I don't know if you want to call it his organization or what you want to call it. But let me get this up so I can share my screen with you guys. And I should by the grace of God, not have computer issues today sharing screens. So, okay, here we go. Come on, mouse. Okay. Can y'all see that? Let me know if you can. It says I'm currently sharing a screen. Y'all let me know if you don't see it. I can see the chat. Hey, Kevin, thank you so much. And your Genesis 6 shirt is on its way, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate the donation. Okay, so here we go. So I want to read you guys their About Us section. And it's, first of all, it's their About Us manifesto. When I hear words like that, my spidey sense is starting to go off immediately. Okay. So let's see. Y'all can see it. Okay, so here's what it says. We're redefining success for those who define culture. And then it goes down into a manifesto for the curious, the creators, and the culture shapers. As humans, we're all made to worship and will worship something if we don't worship God. What are you putting your faith in? What are you worshiping? In a world where we're always building startups, audiences, reputations, it's easy to forget to ask what we're building toward. Fame, money, power, success. These things promise fulfillment, but often leave us wanting more. We believe there's something deeper worth exploring, not just for your work, but for your soul, not just for Sundays, but for your everyday, not just to fill you, but for you to find wholeness, who we are. And it goes into them talking about that they're this community of thinkers, builders, artists, and leaders who are wrestling with what it means to live with purpose and conviction. They wanted to explore deeper questions together. And yes, they talk about Jesus, okay? Y'all pay attention to that. Now, they're not going to do it in a pushy way or religious jargon, but with honesty, clarity, and respect, because they believe Jesus is more than a religious figure. He's the answer to the longings we often try to fill with ambition, success, or self-discovery. And then they talk about what they see. We see an industry and a generation chasing influence, but longing for something unshakable. We see brilliant, high-achieving people feeling more disconnected, anxious, and spiritually adrift than ever. We see the divide between the sacred, notice that term, the sacred, okay? Keep that in mind. That's what caught my attention, sacred. We see the divide between the sacred and the secular, keeping people from seeing how Jesus sees it all as one. We see a culture that's so over Christianity, but maybe never really understood it to begin with. And then here's what they offer. We host speaker events where real conversations happen, where tech founders, producers, designers, and creatives talk candidly about how faith and work collide, where Jesus is at the center, not as an obligation, but an invitation. You'll hear transformation stories, hear stories of transformation, doubt, success, burnout, and redemption, and we don't stop there. After each gathering, we invite you to take the next step, whether it's meeting for a coffee, joining a casual discussion, or reading something new that challenges your perspective. No matter where you're at, there's a seat for you at the table. Come and feast. And here's why it matters, because everyone worships something. We're just asking you to consider what you're worshiping, because chasing self-actualization won't get you peace, because Jesus changes everything, because you are made on purpose for a purpose. And this is your invitation to explore what that might be. They talk about taking your next step. You don't have to agree with everything you hear. You may have excuses and hesitations. Come with curiosity and leave with inspiration. This is a place for people on a journey, a place to ask, explore, to challenge, and to connect. We talk about Jesus here, and we think you'll want to as well. You belong here. Welcome. So when I read that, my first thought was, just being completely honest with you guys, I was thinking, wow, that sounds a whole lot like many of the church doctrine pages that I have been on in local churches in my area for a while. And so I was just like, oh, that's really interesting. So I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep reading. And so then I went to their press page, and this is where it just kind of like stopped me in my tracks here. So let me share that with you guys. We'll hide that one, and then we'll share this one. How we doing today, guys? So far, so good, right? Okay. Somebody said it sounds very much so like the Antichrist. Did I just see that in the comments? Yeah, exactly, Keegan, because we can see some of that language and we go, yeah, I agree with pieces of that. And then you can hear pieces of it that you go, something sounds distorted and off, but I can't quite pinpoint what it is, right? Yes, totally gotcha. Okay, so here's where they talk about the future events. So this is in the press. Oh, I got to hit the share. Hold on, show on screen. Let me close that one out. Okay, there we go. Y'all should be seeing it now. Okay, so meet the press. This is what got me. Acts 17 encourages tech leaders to trade the temporary, money, fame, and power for building the eternal, the collective. That's the word. And the future, the collective. Now, if you know anything about New Age, then you know that the collective is a New Age term. And so immediately I'm going, okay, there's lots of catchphrases that caught my attention. Now, that word might seem harmless, but it is deeply, deeply intertwined, interlaced, however you want to say that, into New Age. And I want to camp here for a few minutes because, again, this is going to lead us into Alice Bailey, and that's where we're going. So, in New Age, the collective refers to a universal, interconnected field of consciousness, a shared spiritual web that links all beings, transcending transcending individuality. Here's some of the core ideas behind it, and this is what you need to think of. Okay. Universal interconnected consciousness. It's a single divine energy pervading everything, and it's sometimes called source or totality. If you've ever read anything that some New Ager wrote, even if it's like a self-help book, they'll use terms like source to even describe God. You can call him God, universe, source, whatever, and then they will refer to it as source. There's a shared experience and potential. Each human is like a droplet of divinity contributing to the spiritual evolution of humanity. And then spiritual growth, raising one's personal consciousness contributes to the evolution of the collective. Again, it's always about ascending, right? And then the age of Aquarius, here we go. We're starting to connect the dots to Alice Bailey. As more people awaken, humanity will supposedly shift into an age of global peace and harmony. We recognize any of those phrases at all, especially this week? Yes. And then channeling information. And this is something that Alice Bailey taught big time, is to be a channeler. Some believe that they can receive guidance from non-human entities. What would these non-human entities be? Somebody answer me that in the comments below. Ascended masters, as they call them, angels or spirits, we know them as demonic entities, right? Through this collective field. So I'm going to read that one more time without chiming in. Channeling information. Some believe they can receive guidance from non-human entities, ascended masters, angels, or spirits through this collective field. Does it sound familiar? It should, because these same ideas were preached by Alice Bailey, Helena Blavatsky, and the entire theosophical movement a century ago. It's the spiritual root of what is now reemerging in our modern digital culture, and it's just rebranded and repackaged, and we're seeing it merging into our churches. So let's talk about the rise of unifying Christianity and the roots of theosophy, because this is where it gets wild. So I mentioned this briefly last week when we talked about the Charlie Kirk situation. And again, like I said, all the questions that I got, I just like, man, I really got to tie this together for people, because I know it's a lot, and I know it's hard to see through all of the things going on, right? There's just layers of deception. So what I want to do is, before we kind of jump into all the Alice Bailey things, I wanted to jump into how this is merging with the church. We have to talk about Alice Bailey, and I want to talk about her because she laid much of the groundwork for what is modern New Age. Okay, so I want to show you guys this graphic that I made real quick, and I'm going to show this on the screen. Can y'all see that? I'm sure you can. So this is what she did. And by the way, I got this because I saw this on someone else's video, and he drew it on a whiteboard, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll just create a graphic. But anyway, basically what Alice Bailey did is she took little bits from every belief system and she merged them into what became known as theosophy. So there's a simple way to understand it. She didn't invent theosophy from scratch. She blended it. She took things from Hinduism, Buddhism, Gnosticism, mysticism, and even fragments of Christianity, and she wove them together into a spiritual system that taught humanity it could evolve into this godhood through enlightenment. And she called this is what she called theosophy. So that's the root of this entire unity narrative that we're hearing right now, that all religions are really saying the same thing, that we're all part of some one divine consciousness, and that peace will come when everyone finally wakes up to the truth. If you're with me so far, let me know, of course, in the chat and in the comments. Now, according to Alice Bailey, the externalization of the hierarchy, which probably a lot of you guys, if you are seeing people talk about Alice Bailey, they're talking about the externalization of the hierarchy, because this is where a lot of this really kind of, her ideas kind of woven together in this externalization of the hierarchy. And I'm not going to go into all pieces of this, but I'm going to give you enough that you can kind of understand how it's all aligning together. So she had, in this externalization of the hierarchy, she described this plan, okay, in which a hidden group of so-called enlightened beings, the spiritual hierarchy as they're called, gradually would reveal themselves to guide humanity into this new era of global unity and a spiritual awakening called the Age of Aquarius. How many times have you guys heard the Age of Aquarius being talked about at the end of 2024, 2025, all of that. Now, at the center of this vision was something called the reappearance of Christ, which we're going to get to as well. Now, she taught that this whole era of global unity would happen in stages, and that at first it would happen on a spiritual level and a mental level, and eventually it would become physical. And humanity, she said, would have to cooperate with the hierarchy's divine plan, working toward world peace, compassion, and right human relations. Now, at the center of this is where the reappearance of the Christ, and I want you to remember this term because we're going to come back to it as we tie this all together at the end, is the key center figure. Okay. Now, this reappearance of the Christ is not the biblical Jesus, but he is a world teacher, and he would unite all religions and lead mankind into the new age. Again, does this sound familiar? It should. She also spoke of a new group of world servers. Now, these are people across the earth who would help usher in this work. And they would do it through 5 major shifts, like these spiritual hubs, basically. And there's 5 cities that she used. So London, New York, Geneva, Darjeeling, I don't even know if I pronounced that right. Sorry if I didn't, if you live there, and Tokyo. And these areas were supposed to work. This is like the root of where this work would take place. Now, I find it interesting. New York is a hub for the United Nations for us. So there's some interesting ties there. But in short, Bailey's writings painted this roadmap, okay, of a one world spirituality. It was an interfaith system that would replace the truth with unity, and it would be the gospel of global consciousness. And that's what we're seeing. Now, I have a couple of articles that I'm going to link to after the stream. Anything today that we talk about or I show you guys, I'll, of course, throw it down in the description box. You can go down and click on this stuff and read for yourself. And I highly recommend that you do, right? Definitely go do that. But I want to talk about a couple of things in these articles that I read. So this first article that I'll link for you, I want to mainly focus on the conclusion of this article, and I want to read the quote for you. Okay. This article was insane, but the conclusion for me just kind of tied all this together. So here's the quote. Alice Bailey's externalization of the hierarchy presents a complex and deeply concerning perspective on spiritual realities and future events. While her teachings diverge significantly from Christian doctrine, the parallels between her revelations and certain biblical warnings offer a stark reminder of the spiritual battle we face. Her promotion of a spiritually illuminated global society reflects the Luciferian inversion of moral values, urging humanity to embrace darkness under the guise of enlightenment. Remember, when Moses performed miracles, Egyptian sorcerers could replicate some of them. While occultism may predict certain events, God's word remains the ultimate authority. However, Bailey's association with Lucifer might grant her insight into Satan's future plans. It's also important to recognize that Alice Bailey's writings have influenced UN policies and regulations which have been imposed on many governments. For instance, Bailey's 10-point plan to undermine Christianity has already been adopted by the UN and numerous governments. Now, if you're seeing stuff on Alice Bailey right now, and you're seeing people talk about the 10-point plan, that this is what they're referring to. I will have a link that goes into the 10-point plan and actually shows you all the pieces from it. Okay. So that'll be in the description box after we're done. But I wanted to make sure you guys kind of know, like, well, how is all this tying together with things that she wrote? Okay. So here we go. Finishing the quote here. This plan includes removing God and prayer from the education system. So state education, we see that. Reducing parental authority over children, and destroying the Judeo-Christian family structure. It also advocates for making abortion legal and easily accessible if sex is free, as well as making divorce easy and legal to free people from the concept of lifelong marriage. The plan further promotes homosexuality as an alternative lifestyle, debases art to the point of madness, and uses media to promote and change mindsets. Now, the next couple sentences are where we're going to camp out on, and I want you guys to see how the pendulum is starting to swing from the progressive left, all those things that I just read you, because people are going, this ain't working, and now that pendulum is swinging directly the other way, okay? So the last sentence or two from this quote. Additionally, it calls for creating an interfaith movement and encourages governments to enact these changes into law, persuading churches to endorse them. Aren't these changes already visible in your country or church? The answer would be yes. So from that article, I jumped to the 10-point plan, okay? And I went down to the sections on the interfaith movement and the governments. And I want to read those 2 sections for you. Again, I'll link all the articles so you have it, but I want to pull these 2 points from it. So point 9, create an interfaith movement. promote other faiths to be at par with Christianity, and break this idea that Christianity is the only way to heaven. By doing that, Christianity will be pulled down and other faiths promoted. And then point 10, get governments to make all these law and get the church to endorse these things. The church must change its doctrine, accommodate the people by accepting these changes, and build them into its structures and systems. And here's the note underneath point 10. The emergence of an interfaith movement stands as a pivotal element in the agenda of the New World Order, paving the way for the establishment of a single world religion. The entity depicted in Revelation 17 as the great prostitute, whore, we know, right, aligned with the ideology of the Antichrist. This movement traces back to religious ecumenism, oh my goodness, which prioritizes unity at the expense of truth. Its progression is marked by the rise of pluralism and interfaith dialogue. How many times have you guys heard recently about people talking about interfaith dialogue? This stuff should be sending alarm bells off when you hear it. We back up. This movement traces its origins back to religious ecumenicism, which prioritizes unity at the expense of truth. Its progression is marked by the rise of pluralism and interfaith dialogue, the claim that all religions are equally valid and all paths lead to the same destination. And this right here is exactly what we have been seeing since the Charlie Kirk incident that happened on the 10th of September. How many of you guys have noticed that there's been a marrying of politics and Christianity in all of this? Since all has happened and you're going, this is weird. This is really, really weird. Okay. So this is what's going on. So Alice Bailey's own words capture it pretty perfectly. So I saved this quote for you guys to hear it. The hierarchy works ceaselessly and can be compared to a great army working for world upliftment. They are the inspiration for the major changes being implemented in the world, yet they take no credit for the work they do. Through the process of spiritual impression, they influence those leaders and progressive thinkers whose minds and hearts are receptive to the new and forward-looking incoming ideas. Their work extends, pay attention to the sentence, their work extends to all aspects of planetary life. Count with me as I read these: politics, education, religion, art, science, psychology, and economics. Who can count, and how many fingers am I holding up? 7. Which brings me to the 7 Mountain Mandate and postmillennialism, because that is where all of this is colliding to. Her mention of politics, education, religion, art, science, psychology, and economics directly ties into what is known as the 7 Mountain Mandate, or 7MM for short. This is the teaching that Christians are meant to take over the 7 major spheres of culture. So you have the religious mountain, you've got the family mountain, you've got the education mountain, the business mountain, the government mountain, the arts and entertainment mountain, and the media mountain. Now, we are seeing a whole lot of people warning about this movement, but we are seeing a whole lot of people fall prey to it. And the 7 Mountain Mandate is a distorted offshoot of postmillennialism. Now, if you're unsure of what postmillennialism is, that's okay. We'll go over it quickly. I have an entire article that I'll link below that kind of goes through postmillennialism in detail. But for now, I'll just give you a quote. I got this from gotquestions.org. Great site to use sometimes for questions like this. So here's a quote. Postmillennialism is an interpretation of Revelation chapter 20, which sees Christ's second coming as occurring after the millennium, a golden age. Did you catch that? A golden age or era of Christian prosperity and dominance. The term includes several similar views of the end times, and it stands in contrast to premillennialism, which is what we are, the view that Christ's second coming will occur prior to his millennial kingdom, and that the millennial kingdom is a literal 1,000-year reign. And to a lesser extent, millennialism can be included in this because they don't believe in a literal millennium at all. Now, the key points that I want you guys to remember about postmillennialism, if this is new for you: Christ's return. So postmillennialism teaches that Jesus will return after the millennium. And again, it's not even a set number of years, but that is that a coming golden age of Christian influence is when he'll show up, after that coming golden age of Christian influence. Are you starting to tie together what I've been kind of putting together and building blocks for you in this so far? Because this is what we're seeing. This is exactly what we're seeing. Now, it's worth noting that the word golden age is an occult term Alice Bailey used often, and it's also tied to the age of Aquarius because the age of Aquarius itself is known as the golden age. Again, these are terms you need to bookmark in your brain so that when you hear people speaking about these, especially if they are part of churches, they are leaders, they're putting on events or whatever, if you're hearing these terms, your alarm bells need to be going off, because this is 100% tying back to everything that we've been talking about here with the rise of the one world religion and occultism. Now, The other piece of this is the social and political activism. Because this belief holds that the church will transform the world, it often leads to a more socially and politically active orientation among its followers. Now, not all people who are post-millennial support the Seven Mountain Mandate, but it is a, it's you can see that nearly anybody who is in the Seven Mountain Mandate comes from a post-millennial perspective. So how does this exactly tie into the end times plan? How does it connect the one world religion that we're seeing forming right now? Well, we're watching it unfold through the current administration that we have over here in the US, and most recently through the events surrounding Charlie Kirk. It feels like to me this has gone into overdrive. We've seen a major show of unity between Roman Catholicism, Mormonism, and even Hinduism, and much of what is happening in Turning Point USA. And it's really seeming to merge the political realm and the religious realm. I don't know if you guys are paying attention to, I guess it was last week, there was some kind of shooting. Was it Sunday? I think it was Sunday. And it was a Mormon church, and it was awful. First of all, what happened was absolutely awful. But the one thing that really caught my attention as I was watching, people comment on it, was everyone kept saying it's an attack on Christianity. It's an attack on Christianity. Mormonism is not Christianity, not even close to Christianity. They believe that Jesus was Lucifer's brother. They believe all kinds of crazy things on the outer realm. And then when you go into the inner realm of what Mormonism believes, it's really dark. We can't even get into it on this channel. My point is that there's a roping that's happening to say, we're just going to put all these people under the same umbrella because they talk about Jesus. So that caught my attention last week. Now, what's happening with this is something that's shaping up into what can only be described as what Christian nationalism. That's what you see people calling it, which is the blending of religion and politics under the banner of revival and unity. I'm seeing this all over the place. Everything that's happening with the political realm and the Jesus realm is somehow tied to some kind of unity and revival. And it's not to say that we cannot have pockets of things that happen where people turn from their life and get saved, and that happens, and oh my goodness, like their lives change. It's not what we're saying. But in this whole of what people are trying to create out of it, that's a whole different, it's a whole different realm of thinking about this and pushing it forward. Now, I want to share a few quotes from another article written by one of my best friends, Jean Bauhaus, who, by the way, will be joining me at some point soon as a guest here on Voices of Certainty. I'll link her article below, so be sure to check out her Substack. She has a great Substack. She's an incredible writer and author, and she just finally released her first podcast, so I'm super pumped that she's being brave enough to get on video, and she did that this week. So y'all be sure to go check out for her Substack inside the description box. But here's what she said, because she wrote an article on Let's Talk About Christian Nationalism, and this is from her, quote, "We're hearing a lot from the left and from the MSM about Christian nationalism. And I have to say, they're not wrong. But I want to set aside that label for now because it's loaded. This is not about being a Christian. This is not about being a Christian who's patriotic and cares about the welfare of your nation and its citizens, which is often what the left means when they use that term. That is one of Satan's tactics, to take a term that is descriptive of something normal and healthy and load it with negative connotations that nevertheless contain a nugget of truth, so that normal, healthy people who see themselves in that language become defensive and have a knee-jerk reaction to any accusation that there's anything darker or unhealthy associated with it. He does that so you'll shut down when you hear the term and not listen to legitimate concerns and warnings. And I'm seeing this happen all over the place when you bring up this term. So I want you to hear me saying that it's normal and healthy to be patriotic and to care about your country and to want God to bless it. That's not what I mean when I say Christian nationalism. But there is a dark, unhealthy strain of Christian nationalism that makes an unhealthy idol out of this idealized version of America, and that literally worships Trump and now also Charlie Kirk, making them both into false messianic figures, and which is apparently ready and willing to strip their enemies of their constitutional rights. That's been I'm going to pause there on Jean's quote here, but that's been one of the biggest things that's bothered me, is this this willingness to really just go after all of these other people, and we just need to rid them from society and all of these things. And I'm going, I don't want a state-forced religion. Sorry, no thank you. Not even Christianity. The Christianity is a choice. And, like my thing is when we're doing stuff like that, this is not what the Bible called us to do. And like I said last week, hearing this stuff, it made me think of Constantine and early parts of the church and how it functioned. And that's really where my mind went when I was hearing all these people stand up and want to, throw the leftists off an island somewhere. So anyway, back to Jean's statement. I'm going to read that last sentence so it flows. But there is a dark, unhealthy strain of Christian nationalism that makes an unhealthy idol out of this idealized version of America and that literally worships Trump and now also Charlie Kirk, making them into both false messianic figures, which is apparently ready and willing to strip their enemies of their constitutional rights. It's people, powerful, influential people who want to force America to be a Christian nation at all costs. And this is what got me with her article. Y'all, whatever door gets opened here are going to swing back on us sooner or later. And that's exactly what many of us have been talking about. If we go this direction, at some point, you will become the target. So what we all need to understand is that the root of this is unbiblical theology of dominionism and theonomy. And then Gene goes on to say that theology, whether it goes by the name of postmillennialism, amillennialism, kingdom now, dominionism, or theonomy, is the belief that the return of Jesus to the earth to establish his kingdom is not a literal prophecy, but is an allegory for the church, that we are the second coming. And as the body of Christ, it's our job to conquer the world for Christ and rule and reign now. And only once we've been successfully taken over the whole world, then will Jesus return to receive the keys of the kingdom from us and deliver it to the Father. The Bible does not say anything like that. It just doesn't. It's not in there. Now, she goes on to say, I'm not saying that all postmillennial and amillennial believers are Christian nationalists or theonomists, but most Christian nationalists and theonomists are postmillennial, and these things are rooted in the Augustinian view of the church as the second coming of Christ, rather than an extension and continuation of his first coming. Also, to cover my basis, I'm not saying that everyone in the MAGA movement wants a theonomic government or is even conscious of that being the end goal. I would venture to say that the majority of the Red Hat Brigade are just patriotic normies who want America to be safe and decent and prosperous for everyone who mostly want to live and let live, that are frustrated that the left won't allow that. The theology is shared to varying degrees by Catholics, Reformed Protestants, especially Calvinists, and the New Apostolic Reformation. For all their differences, an ecumenical movement is underway for them to unite under this banner of Christian nationalism and making America great again. They largely agree on the Seven Mountain Mandate, which is something Charlie Kirk ascribed to. And if you do not know that about him, he did. It is there. He has had speeches on it. It is there. He was very close with Lance Walnew. So y'all need to know that he was involved in that. Okay. And I know it sucks to hear that because some of you guys don't want to hear that, but it is true. Anyway, which is something that Charlie Kirk ascribed to, that it's the job of Christians to gain prominent positions and take over these seven mountains of influence in order to conquer the world and establish the kingdom. When a Christian talks about all of those things, those seven mountains, as our duty to be active in culture, wars, and politics, they're ascribing to this theology, whether they know it or not. Let me read that sentence again. When a Christian talks about it as our Christian duty to be active in culture, wars, and politics, they're ascribing to this theology, whether they know it or not. And again, don't hear what I say, or don't hear what I didn't say. I'm not saying Christians should never be active in politics or civics. That is a matter of personal conviction. Gene has some amazing things to say in that article, but I really wanted to make sure that you guys heard some of this because I'm trying to draw all of this together for you as best as I can because it is a lot. So Gene, well stated. This article wasn't amazing. So again, guys, go read it. The main issue that I see happening here and where I'm going, oh my gosh, man, I hope people are waking up to see that this is where this is going, is it's the blending of Alice Bailey's future plan, her version of a coming Christ who she identified as the Maitreya. Remember that name, Maitreya. I don't know if you'll start to hear that or not, but you need to know that when you're hearing this stuff coming up and they're talking about this figure, this is who it is. And modern movements are being yoked to that with politics in the church. It's starting to look like the same spiritual forces that inspired Alice Bailey's writings are influencing today's rhetoric about unity and enlightenment. You can hear it in the language that's being used across the political sphere and in certain church circles, that everybody can have this call to come together under one moral, religious, and national umbrella. And that's what I see happening everywhere. Now, it might sound noble. I get it. Some of it sounds good, but it mirrors the exact message that Bailey claimed to receive through a telepathic dictation from a spirit that she called Master DK. Okay. And it was a deceptive message on unifying faith under one system. And Master DK was nothing more than a demonic influence and a demonic spirit. So Bailey wrote extensively about this coming figure. I want to spend just a few minutes pulling together who the Maitreya is for you guys. describing the Maitreya as the Christ or world teacher that we talked about, when we were first beginning to go down the road here of Alice Bailey, who would appear to guide humanity into a new era of peace and global spirituality. But we all know that this Christ is not the Jesus of Scripture. And here's where we need to be discerning. We see this same kind of unity language showing up in modern Christianity, especially movements that are emerging: Protestantism, Roman Catholicism, and yes, even Mormonism. And we need to recognize it for what it is. These faith systems do not share the same gospel, the same Christ, or the same foundation. And yet, we're watching people across the board with these groups gather under a single banner of faith and revival. Now, we're going to talk about something that's going on in DC right now, started yesterday, has a couple days to go here in just a few minutes, that not only illustrates it, but it's going to drive what's happening home. And I want you to know that we're seeing all of this, and it's exactly what Bailey envisioned over a century ago. So here's a couple of things about the Maitreya. So first, she described Maitreya as the world teacher, not the exclusive Messiah of Christianity, but the supreme head of a hidden spiritual hierarchy, what she called an inner government of the planet. In her 1948 book, The Reappearance of the Christ, she explained that Maitreya would appear under different names across various religions as the Christ for the Christians, the, I can't even pronounce this right, Bodhisattva for Buddhists, hopefully got that right, and the Imam Mahdi for Muslims, okay? So again, this is not our Jesus. We all know who this is, okay? Second, she redefined the second coming. In Bailey's teachings, Maitreya's return would be a single visible event, but it wouldn't be a single visible event, but a gradual unveiling that would happen once humanity had spiritually evolved enough to receive him. She believed this would occur, catch this, she believed this would occur sometime after 2025, and mark the beginning of a new Aquarian civilization. Now, this is why many watchmen and watchwomen have had our sights on this year with so many of the end times events unraveling, because this is what it all goes back to. And I can't see it any differently than what is happening right now. I feel like we have had a culmination, a crescendo, if you will, of all of this stuff starting to just blow up. It's like the flame is being fanned, okay? Third, she promoted what she called the Great Invocation, a mantra she said was revealed to her in 1945. This is a prayer calling for the Christ to return to earth and work through humanity to restore the so-called plan of light and love. Light and love is a new age term. When you hear that, again, it should send off your alarm bells, light and love. Followers of her teaching still use this invocation, so this prayer, they still use it today as a way of aligning with that spiritual energy. And then the final one that's crazy about this whole Maitreya thing, this all fits into what's known as New Age Christology, a completely different understanding of who Christ is and what his purpose is. Bailey taught that Maitreya wouldn't come to save humanity from sin, but to bring a new revelation of divine principles that would help mankind save itself. In other words, we can become our own gods. All of those types of things are tied into this. So if you go back and watch the Charlie Kirk Memorial, you're going to notice some of this language. You're going to notice this imagery that we even talked about today woven throughout. It was honestly difficult to discern at times. And there are moments where you'd nod along and say, yeah, that's true. And then moments where you'd go, wait, what was just said? Something doesn't sit right. Something's going off in here that is telling me this is not right. The whole event felt to me like a melting pot of ideas, pieces of truth mixed in with undertones of something else. And to me, it looked more like a political rally than it did a memorial that was centered on faith. I mean, you could register to vote. Like, that's just weird to me. It doesn't matter about what he did for a living, but like registering to vote at a memorial, I don't know. I just didn't really care much for that. Now, here's the deal. I'm not saying that everything we've talked about today is going to unfold exactly in this way, but the parallels are really hard to ignore, and they're becoming harder to ignore as we continue to go down the road of time here. The language, the unity narrative, the merging of politics and faith and this ideology, they're starting to echo the same themes that we've seen in these earlier writings and spiritual movements, okay? So what I want to do now is I want to play a few clips for you guys from an awesome video, again, from Tony over at Minute to Midnight that I saw yesterday. Now, he had Eric Stogner on this week. And once again, it is wild how their entire show yesterday mirrored exactly what I wanted to talk to you guys about that I had written Wednesday night. So we're going to walk through several clips that they have, and I've got some commentary to add as we go, but this should help you to see, if you're a watchman or a watchwoman, it's going to help you pull all of this together and kind of, again, connect the dots. And while videos like this suck to do sometimes, because I know it's going against the grain, it is my job as a watchwoman to point out the deception that is going on. Okay, so let me grab, let's see here. Let me grab these videos. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'll see if there's anything in the chat here. Yes, light and love. Yes. Okay. Let me close out a couple of screens. Y'all doing okay in the chat? Y'all doing okay with all this? Are you guys with me? Like, you understand what I'm talking about? Let me know. Okay, I'm gonna grab this first video. All right, hold please. Hey, we haven't really had too many freezing points today, have we? All right, here we go. Let me know, by the way, when I hit play, if you guys can't hear this. You should be able to, but let me know. Oh,
Washington, D.C. from the 9th to the 12th. Okay, it's called, it's on the National Mall, and it's called Communion America. 50 tents of non-stop worship, 1 tent for
this is the event that I was mentioning a few minutes ago that I wanted to make sure you guys understand that is going on here. So please pay attention to what he is talking about.
every state, with thousands of worshippers, prayer, gospel proclamation, and commissioning every night. And on the third day, they are due to have the longest communion table in history, spanning the National Mall. It is time for authenticity, vulnerability, and connection. This is from their own words. It is the vision of, and this is my words, and has been organised by Lou Engle and is sponsored by Awaken the Dawn. It's also being promoted by people like Bill Johnson, who's a NAR proponent, and many others. Bill Johnson from Bethel Church. As far as Lou Engle go, he's the main guy organising this. Back in 2016, was a self-proclaimed NAR prophet, apostle. Lou Engle, he basically, I'll just read something from an article here. There's quite a lot in it, but he met with Catholic leaders and different things, and at the end, after effusive mutual expressions of unity and forgiveness, the Pope's delegate and Lou Engle kissed each other's feet.
Did you guys catch that? The kissed each other's feet. Listen to what he says next. This is insane to me.
Before the gathered masses and the world, proclaiming a holy moment, ending the diabolical sin of division between Catholics and Protestants. The papal delegates proclaimed, Jesus doesn't care about our differences in doctrine. We must fly united. And so that was Lou Engle kissing this Pope's man's feet back in 2016. And Lou Engle is the main guy organising this Communion USA event, which, will span a mile-long communion table with all these, religion, Catholics, Protestants uniting, all these different 7 mountains mandate people and all of that, the NAR elites and so on at this event in Washington, D.C. So this is a big pushing for the one world religion, I feel like. And as Christians, it can be confusing for people because these people, have some right doctrine and some wrong doctrine. Some of it's very destructive. And I believe Satan wants to usurp Christianity to get us into that way.
Okay. So that's what I wanted you guys to hear, is that this is what is going on in DC right now as we speak. They've got 50 tents. They're doing all this unity nonsense to align with Catholicism. I'm sorry, I'm not uniting with the Roman Catholic Church. Not doing it. Not doing it. So the other thing that I wanted to mention that I saw, and I couldn't find the clip. I've seen it 1,000 times, but I could not find it yesterday, and I just probably didn't do a big enough search. I had a lot to put together here. Is that there was one clip with one of these people who was going to be there this weekend, and they talked about tearing or piercing the veil through this whole thing. Now, that is an occult term. And here's what I grabbed from just a definition. In occult and esoteric traditions, tear the veil or pierce the veil or lift the veil refers to a practitioner's ability to transcend ordinary reality and perceive the spiritual or astral world. It describes gaining access to hidden knowledge and awareness that is normally concealed from human senses. Does that sound biblical to you? Does any of that sound biblical? Like, that to me is just insane that this was the quote from one of these leaders who was going to be up there this week. Now, they're supposed to have this mile-long communion tent, and it is a unity rally this weekend rather, for uniting and setting aside our doctrinal differences. And that's just a huge red flag. So that's what I wanted to show you guys on that one. Let me grab the next one. Okay. I am so happy we've not had any freezing today. Woo! All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about Alice Bailey, and he's just going to hammer home some of the points that I gave you guys on Alice Bailey. I just wanted to corroborate, so to speak, the things that I'm talking about. That, like, I'm not a crazy person because I'm bringing this to your attention, and those that are talking about this, we're not crazy. This is what's going on, and the church at large is wildly unasleep to this. The remnant that is watching all this stuff is very small, and we all have to have some knowledge in this stuff so that we can help our brothers and sisters who are falling prey to some of this stuff that's just insane. And they don't realize it because they don't know doctrine very well. So there's that. Okay, let me hit show on stream. Play. Here we go.
Of the hierarchy of light, who she believes to be ascended masters, but I say, like, I believe they're fallen angels anyway.
Yep.
Right.
She said that progressive thinkers would have influence in 7 areas of planetary life. And those areas were politics, education, religion, art, science, psychology, and economics. In other words, they're basically the same 7 mountains that the Christians are pushing. So a popular dominionist heresy is the 7 mountains mandate, pushing similar areas to what the New Ages were pushing. And what the 7 mountains mandate, people believe, is that the Christians need to basically almost control the world, have influence in these 7 mountains areas, 7 areas, and have them under dominion before Jesus returns, which is completely unbiblical. It absolutely is unbiblical. I'll go in it a little bit more, but I'll throw it to you for any comments you might have right now, Eric.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of this is something we should pay close attention to because, I mean, isn't it convenient now that the new Pope is American?
Yeah.
And so now,
absolutely.
you know, there'll be a lot more going on in the English language, of course, even though I gather he's fluent in multiple languages, but here in America. So it's almost fitting that there's this mile-long Eucharist or whatever going on in our capital. Also notice all the tie-ins that Trump has had with the Catholic Church. He's had priests at his home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. He's blessed a lot of Catholic events, spoken at Jesuit schools he attended.
Okay, I want you to hear the word Jesuit. If you've never heard of that, you need to make mental note of that.
A Jesuit school himself. And really, I mean, that's another whole category to look into. Who and what are and were the Jesuits? You talk about if you're going to influence 7 areas of power and influence in the world, then you would need influencers. You would need people to come in and infiltrate and essentially rise the ranks so that when the time came for all these things to come together, everything, every area, every field, and like we've seen World Economic Forum, every leader in every country would have influencers in the right place so that when someone says snap to and come to attention, we're doing this big thing, they'll all work in unison. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will actually get into a little bit of that too shortly. You've touched on a very important area.
Yeah, so that's another key of this too is understanding the Jesuits and who they were. At some point, I'm really hoping, just so you guys know, to get in touch with Chris Pinto. I would love for Chris Pinto to come on to Voices of Certainty so we could actually dive into the Jesuits, the Jesuit order. But anytime you see somebody affiliated with that stuff, it should definitely send some red flags. And there's a whole lot there. I just don't have time to go into all of that. But yes, Trump has been highly involved with Jesuits. Okay, let me grab the next clip here. Okay, and this one, let's see here. Where am I at? Sorry, guys. Lost my place in my outline. Okay, here we go. open. Okay, so they're going to go a little bit more in depth here on the 7 Mountain Mandate. And I wanted you guys to hear this because it is really good. I'm going to turn up the speed just slightly. They don't talk as fast as I do, just know that, okay? You guys are like, well, praise the Lord, girl, because when you get excited, you get going way too fast. All right, here we go. Oops, show. Ayo, there we go.
13. I'm just reading from my notes again, sorry, just so I don't forget anything. Lance Wallnau and Bill Johnson of Bethel together wrote and published a book titled Invading Babylon, the 7 Mountains Mandate. Lance Wallnau, who I feel is one of the worst of the NAR pastors and a big proponent of the 7 Mountains Mandate. Remember, he's the guy that wrote a book where he claimed that Donald Trump was King Cyrus type before the 2016 election. And Lance Wallnau's book and his whole...
So when I heard that, by the way, I have heard about Donald Trump being King Cyrus for a long time. I don't know if that originated with Lance Wallnau, but I found that very interesting because I've heard that, said so much. And now I would like to know, is that who that originated through? Because if so, I don't know. I just find that very interesting if that's how that got started was through him.
7
meaning we've heard a lot of people in our own camps talk about that, right? So
Mountains Mandate and Donald Trump was a big thing that pushed Trump into the 2016 presidency. Got a lot of people voting, a lot of Christians voting for Trump. So anyway, Lance Wallnau and Charlie Kirk have teamed up on a lot of different platforms, including podcasts. So, and actually, I don't want to, I'm not here to bag Charlie Kirk. I mean, the man's, had a lot of good things to say. I don't agree with a lot of his doctrine. And this is, the truth is very hard to find, and it's very easy to have a little bit of lie mixed in with a lot of truth, and it dilutes the whole thing. But so in 2024, Charlie Kirk and Lance Wallnau partnered up, to push for Trump. And the partnership, which Lance Wallnau referred to as the Courage Tour, sought to spur conservative churches directly into the political arena backing Trump. And in his podcast, Lance Wallnau described that he had been counseling Charlie Kirk. And Wallnau said, I call him up regularly and cheer him on because he's attacked as the face of Christian nationalism. There we go. Those conversations precipitated the current partnership. We're going to join Charlie and Charlie's joining with us, Lance Wallnau said. So Christian nationalism, Christian nationalism is not the same as Christianity. And this is what's confusing for a lot of people.
Right. And at a
So did you guys catch that? So this is why, many people have been talking about, and I think there are, folks in the church that have a hard time hearing it, that Charlie Kirk was really pushing for the 7 Mountain Mandate. And he was partnering with people like this. And I can understand, like, if I didn't know theology, right, I can understand pieces of that, right? Because this guy is a political guy. He's trying to make a country awesome to raise his kids in so that it doesn't get sucked into, Marxism and communism and all of that. I get that. But when you don't have proper doctrine, this is why so many of us hammer so hard on doctrine and theology and why it matters. Because when you don't have these things in check, you can get pulled to the right or to the left of anything, and you can get swept away in some false doctrine and some things that truly are not biblical, and you don't even know it because you have no firm foundation to even stand on doctrinally, to even understand how you start getting off in the weeds doctrinally. I know people personally that are pre-mill, they're pre-trib, they're all these things, and then they watch speakers who talk about this very thing and they're praising that, and they don't even realize it's an absolute contradiction of the very doctrine that they stand on. So it's because there isn't a depth of understanding to that doctrine. So that's one of the things I wanted to interject on, because this is why I've hammered on it. Why? Because it's also been my life, by the way, guys. I have written down here in 2018 and 2019, when I had my YouTube channel, I was introduced to Lance Wallnau. And I was like, man, what a cool thing. This whole we need more Christians in these areas. Do you know why all that sounded good to me? I didn't go very far in it, but I thought, man, that's a good concept. Why was it interesting to me? Because I had no doctrinal foundation. I knew the terms that you guys hear me talk about all the time on this channel, but I had no clue what any of it meant. That's how easy it is to go down a road like that. This is why you have to be a part of a church that has sound doctrine. This is why you have to be a part of a church that is teaching the full counsel of God and not cherry picking scriptures on it and writing their doctrine off of it. This is why this matters. So I'll get off that soapbox and finish up what let Eric speak for a second here.
Societal level, it's one thing to get people motivated for personal reasons or for nationalistic reasons, but if you can get them wrapped around their religious beliefs, then you can really grab their hearts along with their minds. And so, yeah, it's almost not surprising that they're wanting to motivate people based on their faith. And then, Christian nationalism, what even is that? When you think of scripture, I just think of Jesus saying, well, show me a coin. Whose image is on this coin? Caesar's. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. I think that was a way of saying we're not here to get involved in taxation and government and that kind of thing. And in fact, later when Jesus was, being evaluated and questioned by Pilate, he mocked him and said, who are you? Are you really the king of the Jews? And who are you? And he basically said, if this were my kingdom, I would have my people would rise up, but my kingdom is not of this world. And likewise, a lot of his followers were disgruntled when he revealed, no, I'm not coming here to overthrow your Roman authorities. I know you thought I was. That's not my plan. My plan is to really change the location of where your faith is lived out from the external behaviors from the heart. So, yeah, all these ideas of we should turn this nation, turn this world around. We're going to use Christianity to do it. That's not really what Jesus came to say and do. And it's funny. I think we've even talked on previous shows how there's even some people out there that admit they're not Christians, and then they'll say, but I really like the culture that Christianity creates. So even they're admitting like there's some good fringe benefits to have Christian values, but now it does feel like we're all having our values hijacked and morphed into the political realm. And
that's the thing. It is the merriment of politics and religion, and it's not Christianity. And we should have nothing to do with it. I've got, let's see, 2 more clips here, and they're really quick. This one was so good from Tony. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to show you guys this. And I know you guys are going to go and watch this whole show. But this is just it. I guess it hit me because for me, it was confirmation on that this is what we see happening. And I'm not crazy because I see it, or I'm not crazy because I'm talking about it. So let me show you guys this one. Tony's about ready to preach. Y'all better get ready. Here we go.
And as you were speaking, I thought about the temptations of Jesus. Satan's, came to Jesus in the wilderness, and one of the things he tempted him was, he said, if you will fall down and worship me, I will give all these kingdoms of the world that he showed Jesus. I'll give them to you if you'll fall down and worship me. And Jesus basically, he said no, he used scripture, but Jesus never refuted Satan's claim to have all the kingdoms of the world. And so we cannot take them all back, which is what the 7 Mountains mandate is doing until Jesus' second coming, and he puts everything under his feet at that point. The systems of the world are basically under Satan's control overall. Now, as individuals, we don't have to be. And there are pockets of things that are, not under Satan's control. But there's nowhere in Scripture that tells us to conquer all these things before Jesus returns. But that is exactly what the 7 Mountains mandate people are trying to do. And I'll just read.
Yes, and that is it right there. So we were never commanded to take over the earth so that we could usher Jesus to us and so that he could take the keys from us. That is not how it works. It's not. None of that is biblical. So Tony, well done for putting that together. Okay. And then the final one here, this is the one that, packed the most, well, they all packed the punch for me, but let me give you guys this one because I bet 5-1 when Eric starts giving you this quote, some of you guys are going to recognize it. And I have the exact quote to give you from what he's referring to. So we pull this up and then we will go to questions here shortly.
The Antichrist isn't going to seem wildly different. It's not going to be some red pitchfork carrying fellow and against a white, angel type. It's going to be someone actually very similar. So we need, again, we're back to where we began. Deception is what we need to be watching out for at every level. So we're not looking for the opposite of Christ. We're looking for a close facsimile that's fake. And that's what all these religious movements kind of seem is like they're talking Christian. So if you were trying to pull off a good fake Jesus, what would you do? You'd make sure that that movement, that person, whatever, spouts a lot of Christian sounding words. And the weak-minded Christians who don't really know their Bible well, they'll get deceived, which, like you pointed out, when Jesus was tempted by Satan, not only did he tempt him with these various things, but he came at him with scripture. And then Jesus had to counter with scripture. So, and even Adam and Eve. Eve got tempted with just a slight variation of what God said. So all I'm trying to make the point is that deception is going to come not by something that seems opposite, something that seems really close and pretty good. And aren't we used to that in politics? It's like we just say, we joke around, well, we vote for the lesser of two evils. We'll settle for good enough.
Bingo. And that's what many of us have been talking about for a very long time. The lesser of two evils is still what? Evil. It still is. And they all work for the same people. They're all shooting for the same goal. Right now, we've got the folks in the office that look like the angel of light, the beautiful Satan that the Bible describes of how gorgeous he was and all these things. If it would have been the other way around, the evil and the deception would have been ridiculously simple for people to pick up on. And I don't think people would be falling for it as much. I really don't. It's now that those of us sounding the alarm look like the crazy people again, because Satan is taking, truth. Maybe in some regard, maybe it's 70% truth and mixing it with 30% crap. And then maybe in other regards, it's 95% truth and 5% crap. And in some regard, it's 99% truth and 1% crap. And people can't see through it. And it's because he is coming as an angel of light. And so this is, again, as I said last week, I'm not going to be backing down on this stuff. I'm going to stand and continue to sound the alarm, because my job is to be sitting on that wall right now, showing people that, like, hey, I know this looks like it looked good on paper, but it ain't good. And so I'm going to continue to do that. So here he's going to wrap up with this quote, and then I'll give this the actual quote to you guys, because again, it ties all of it together so beautifully. So Eric, proceed.
Do you remember there's a quote, and you'd think by now I'd have it memorized, but this guy was like the first head of the United Nations. His name was Robert Spake. And you ever heard this quote? Let's see if I can remember it or not butcher it. I don't have it in front of me here. He says something like, given the, if someone would present to us, be he God or devil, someone who can solve our problems and pull us out of the economic morass that we find ourselves in, we will accept him, be he like devil or not. And that's a bad paraphrase of it. Basically, he's saying, if things are so bad and someone is presented that seems like they can be our Mr. Fix-It Man and solve it, we'll accept him. We don't care who he is. We don't care if he's the false Christ. We'll accept him. So that was a quote.
So that quote is this one, and I've quoted this before on a few other just random videos, but here it is. It's from Paul Henry Spack, the first president of the UN General Assembly, first president of the European Parliament, and one-time Secretary General of NATO. By the way, again, remember what we talked about earlier, Alice Bailey's 10-point plan all throughout the UN. The UN adopted it a long time ago. So here's his quote. I cannot, where was it? Oh, sorry. I went too far. Quote, we do not need another committee. We have too many already. What we want is a man of sufficient stature to hold the allegiance of all people and to lift us out of the economic morass into which we are sinking. Send us such a man, and be he God or devil, we will receive him. That was the quote. So that's my point. This is how all of this is tying together. And like I said, I don't know if it's all going to pan out in everything I've shown you today, exactly by line, letter by letter, but you can see how all of this is shaping up to be exactly I think we're past the forming. I think, again, I'm going to use that Tetris analogy that I used last week. That foundation is already built. We're just starting to see those bricks stack up faster, and we can't put the right pieces in there fast enough to dispel some of the bricks off. And I think it's just going to continue to rise until it hits the ceiling. And the way things are going now, we are just, it's a fever pitch high for how fast everything is going. So I cannot stress enough how great that entire video was. Again, I will link everything down in the description box once the stream is over. But that video was absolutely amazing. I wish I could have shared the whole thing with you guys because it's that good. So just go watch it. As we close this part out and we move into questions, I simply want to say this. Pay attention. The connections are not coincidences, you guys. They're not. They're reminders for us to stay discerning. They're reminders for us to test everything against Scripture. It has to go through, and I'm pointing to my Bible here, the lens of Scripture. It has to go through that first. And to hold fast to the truth, even when it's wrapped in a familiar language. If something doesn't sit well with you, if you're feeling your discernment meter go off, pray. Ask the Lord to reveal it to you. The Bible says in John 16, I think it's 16:33, the Holy Spirit will reveal all things. So he will show you. He will absolutely show you. So with that said, I'm going to jump to questions and see what we have here. This went a little longer than I expected today, so I apologize. Keegan, if you sent questions, oh, no questions. Well, good, guys. Super. I'm glad we didn't have any questions. Well, I mean, I'm not glad, but I mean, you know, hey, if we don't have any questions, that means you guys got it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And per usual, I will see you in the next one. So keep your eyes lifted towards the sky. Oh, wait, is that right? Yeah, keep your eyes on the sky. And the sky is really clear, by the way, because the government shut down and there's not a lot of chemtrails right now. But anyway, I digress. Keep your eyes on the sky and keep your ear listening for that shofar. I'll see you in the next one next time, guys. Maranatha. Bye.